This is an Intel Studios production. Viewers' discretion is advised. Welcome to Intel Studios Veterans Matter broadcast, the first live stream broadcast strictly for veterans and active duty military in the tri-state, New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania areas. Veterans Matter is produced by Al Zetmeyer. Now, live from our studio in Northfield, New Jersey, your host, Veterans Advocate Mike Merlino. Good afternoon, and we welcome all of our audience, and it is our hope that today's broadcast will assist or enlighten you, and at the very least, let you know that there is help for you if needed. If you want your friends to participate in our broadcast, they need to go to our website, veteransmatternj.com. And that's all one word, veteransmatternj.com. Click on the Our Show circle, then click on subscribe. You can also go directly to YouTube, hit the search button, type in Intel Studios live stream, scroll down the options until you see Veterans Matter. Our phone lines will be available throughout the broadcast, and I'll let our audience know when we begin taking calls. The phone number is 609-798-4475. That's 609-798-4475. Please be patient as the calls are answered in the order they appear. And now let me introduce our guest, who's no stranger to Veterans Matter, our good friend, the Veterans Administration Veteran Community Outreach Specialist covering all of Southern New Jersey, United States Army veteran, Pat Carney. Pat, welcome to Veterans Matter.
Thanks, Mike. Always happy to be here. It is nice being here, and it's like not a work day. So I'm kind of like able to just be veteran Pat, even though every time I go out, I know I'm kind of representing the VA, but it's nice being here on a day off to just be able to relax and talk and hang out.
You know, Pat, before we get into the show, I do want to pass along from all of the guys at the American Legion Riders Post 352, our 1 year condolences on the passing of both your mom and dad, who were very special to us. And there's still a piece of my heart that's just not there. Every time I think of Wrestling for Warriors, Support Our Troops program, it just, the mainland Veterans Breakfast.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, and you don't need to comment on it, is that we all miss it, and we have no idea why mainland administration stopped it.
It's not, as far as I understand, because I haven't. I've talked with one of the veteran teachers who was a friend of my mom at length about kind of what's going on there, and it between COVID. Everything else, between COVID and it taking 3 people to fill my mom's shoes with the veteran stuff at the school, and I wish I was exaggerating, right? It just nothing added up for this year, and again, everything with COVID screws all of it up. They do want to do the Veterans Breakfast again next year. They want to start it back up next year. They want to do the Salute to Service football game. They want to do Wrestling for Warriors. All these things that they want to make happen, and I know the kids are just chomping at the bit to do something. I think they're actually doing a winter clothing drive, or did a winter clothing drive over there for any vets that were in need. So they're doing the best with what they got right now. But I think they'll get it all back together. Mark Marone over there is really just a great administrator over at Mainland, and his dad was a veteran, so he understands it, and I know he's willing to bend over backwards for it.
There was so much that was a participation of that, the Veterans Breakfast, when you were able to set up a table for VA to give information for veterans. And the Legion Riders, we get members every year, and it was always a great place for them to be able to stop.
Every year it was packed. I always loved seeing it. I just loved being there in general. I mean, and it's always funny because, funny, sad, whatever you want to call it, but every year, like in South Jersey, it's hard to find biscuits and gravy, right? And it's like my favorite breakfast food. So every year on Veterans Day, my mom would make sure the cafeteria ladies made biscuits and gravy. So the whole reason it was ever there was because I liked it. It was my favorite, and I got to have it on Veterans Day morning, you know.
Right.
And then with this Veterans Day, with it not going on, even with work, where my Veterans Day was usually full of stuff to do, I was like, I have no what to do on Veterans Day now. Like, I've done the Veterans Breakfast now for the past 4 years. Since I got out. So since 2013, I've been going to my mom's Veterans Breakfast. But work-wise, trying to attend events and stuff with Veterans Day, I'm like, I got nothing. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just won't do anything this year. And that's what I decided to do. And I don't know if it was the right choice, but it's the choice I made. But no, the hole is very tough to fill. Yeah.
I know every executive board meeting we have with the Legion Riders, our new president, Tom Dixon, it's something always comes up about what's happening with our donations to mainland. Are we still supposed to do these things? Is someone involved? And it's unbelievable of how important that became. I can remember sitting with your mom. You were still in the Army, by the way, back then days. I was doing a radio show with Commander Bill Butler. And your mom came on the show way back with the Support the Troops program. And it was just something you could do that wasn't being done anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And the greatest part that we used to talk about on our show was because of your mom's involvement in the school system, our young people were getting to learn what patriotism was all about and about what our men and women were doing overseas. So, it was a great program, and I'm really glad to hear from you that this will be starting again. So for our Legion Riders, especially Tom Dixon, our president, we can look forward to getting this back on track.
I do too, and I've offered them, any help that I can do. I guess I'm the closest thing to being able to help like my mom did. So if they need it, I'm always there, and whatever they need, I know the Legion Riders will be there too, which has always been great because you guys are always there to lend a hand, or save my butt if I need it, if a vet needs it, or if Tom and you, I know you were the previous president over there, and you guys have been awesome since day one.
Last night I had an opportunity to speak to a really good friend of both you and I. United States Marine Corps veteran, Air Force, Army, and at Ground Zero, Eddie Afanador. I talked to him last night. He's just getting over sickness. I was going to try and get him to come here for the second part of the show today. But we both know how important he was to what you went through when you first came home here.
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, he... At the end of the day, I mean, it's because of you, Ed, and my mom and my dad that I'm even here today. Especially my mom and dad, because, when we got out, we were essentially homeless. We left our house in Texas because my wife and I had so much recovery time that I had needed. There was no way we were going to be able to do that alone in Texas. So my mom and dad opened their doors to us, once again. But it was their house, so I say essentially homeless, where obviously we had a home, and it was the home I grew up in. It's the home I'm living in now. But it's a heck of a thing turning back the clock and trying to think of it in hindsight being 2020, like, oh, crap, we were really homeless. Like, we didn't have our own house, and Mom and Dad took me in. And then it's like I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea how I was going to get healthy. I had no idea how I was going to fight the demons or fight the battle with the demons that most veterans fight. And then I met you and Eddie, I met you guys the first day I got out.
And what a great way to introduce why we're here today. I received this from you a couple of weeks ago, 2021 COVA, Keep Our Veterans Alive. It's a veteran suicide, Normalize the Conversation. And I got this flyer, and we got a couple extra here. Give our people an idea of what's going on here with this event.
It really was a good segue because it's. I had no idea that suicide prevention was going to be so prevalent in my personal life and in my professional life. I know myself, like many veterans, have lost way too many friends and fellow and people that they served with to suicide. So that has been my focus since, I guess, day one getting out, especially losing one of my soldiers to suicide while I was in. Obviously, for me, the crutch that I leaned on was Disabled Sports USA, was the athletic rehabilitation, and that did great things for me. It's not, again, everyone has their own thing that's going to work for them. But since that day, and I'm trying to lead into it here, back then we all heard of the 22 a day. 22 a day, veterans take their own lives. But then the numbers were quote unquote skewed because they only surveyed a certain number of veterans in the country, which I understand. But even so, I mean, even that 22, that's 600 a month, or 600 every 30 days. It's way too many. Now we fast forward, say, I don't even know, maybe it was 2014, 15. I know it was before I started working for VA. It was 22 a day, and I know it was when I was at school, so 14 or 15.
But, Pat, they don't even have a clue.
They don't, because
single
two-thirds of
car accidents, that
2/3 of the veterans who take their own lives aren't even connected to services, to VA or any kind of professional services, whether it's counseling through the VA or counseling through private medical care. So that 22 may only be a third of the actual number. And I'm trying not to get into the semantics of it, but looking, and then that's again back 2014, 15. When we look at it now, it's like 20 a day, which is progress. Do not get me wrong, and it's great progress. But two less a day, that's 60 less veterans. That's great in a month, But things have been done a certain way in terms of suicide prevention for however many years now. We'll say 5 years because that's how long I've been doing it professionally. I couldn't help but think, well, what can we do differently? What can be done that hasn't really been done before, or that at least I haven't heard of that's been done before? That's where this came from, this veteran suicide Normalize the Conversation, which is presented by the New Jersey Keep Our Veterans Alive initiative that Bob Luby had founded. I've kind of taken the ball with this event and other things and kind of ran with it with him supporting me from supporting me. But this event specifically is, yes, of course, based on veteran suicide prevention, but it's focusing on veterans like myself, veterans like the ones that I work with. It's focusing on those working veterans or those veterans that are members of groups. Like the Legion Riders has how many veterans that are part of it. It's focusing on what can the Legion Riders do to best serve fellow Legion Riders or the veterans that are in the Legion Riders or in the American Legion or they're part of the Elks Club or they're whatever they are. South Jersey Industries has a veterans resource group who their lead Richard DeRose from South Jersey Industries is going to be one of our speakers here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So that most people would think that those veterans who are working and are a part of a group are doing okay. They're working. They have a paycheck. They have, they seem fine. They're not. I mean, I've been working 5 years.
Right.
I'm in the middle of it all, and I'm still seeing medical doctors. I'm still seeing my counselors to make sure I'm okay. So the fight isn't over for me. It's just that I think I'm able to fight it a little better than maybe someone else, so I can help other people. So it's focusing on that group of vets who maybe aren't as well served as we all think they are, and it's doing that. It's presenting it in a way that is simple, easy to understand, but it's from the heart and it's from the gut. I don't like using the word TED Talk because that's most copyrighted and all, but similar to that kind of presentation. It's going to be presentations based on veteran suicide prevention, starting off with military culture and the value that soldiers, or that I would say soldiers, but I mean that service members can bring to a place of employment, to a business, to an organization, to family readiness, military or veteran family readiness, talking about, I meant to have the list right in front of me and I don't, but also talking about how to gather those veterans in. So this is why I have it broken down into two blocks, morning and afternoon. The morning block is talking about this is how valuable your veterans are. And this is why. A good example of value is at 19 years old, I joined when I was 21. At 21 years old, so same age as someone would be graduating college, I was responsible for $5 million in military equipment. 4 vehicles, 4 M1126 Stryker infantry carrier vehicles. Like the backbone of our platoon I was in charge of them at 21 years old. So I was responsible for getting every single 40 people in my whole platoon to wherever we needed to go safe at 21 years old. When I get out of the military, that experience I had, that's a long time ago for me now. That's 16 years ago. How much value does that give me though in my job now? If I was already able to take care of $5 million worth of equipment and 40 people's lives were on my watch, how does that transfer over into the business world? Why am I only responsible for myself and some data input when I have the potential of running a section and doing all that section's data input, maybe a little bit better than the person who graduated college at 21. So it's those things like that. Like at a very young age, things were put in front of us that we were forced to overcome, that may make us more valuable after we were done in the military and we're looking into get employment in the civilian world. Then we're going into kind of how to gather those veterans, whether you're gathering veterans at the workplace or you're gathering veterans outside of the workplace in an organization or a club or whatnot, like I said before. And then I'm one of the presenters towards the end of the day, talking about, well, what do you do when you finally get all your vets together? Well, I came up with a program. It's just a simple 4 questions that you can ask at any point in time in the month, and it's going off of that, the same system I used being in charge of all those vehicles with those strikers, which is called PMCSing, Preventative Maintenance Checks and Services. Well, I rebranded it to Preventative Monthly Checks to Combat Suicide. That's 4 questions, and it's those 4 questions that cover what I hope. Well, what I know is the significant stressors in a veteran's life. And because I want everyone to attend, I'm not going to tell everybody what it is, but covering those things and how you can best help those vets. I mean, at the Legion Rider meetings, this is probably a good example, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you ask all the veteran members at your Legion Rider meetings how they're doing?
No, we don't.
Perfect example. You have no, and I don't know this or anything, but Tom Dixon could be having a terrible time at home, and the only outlet he has is the Legion Riders.
Yeah, you know.
He could. I'm not saying he does. I'm
right.
saying he could, though. No one's asking him. Of the people that are closest to him, that he sees all the time, that he rides with every day, that have his back no matter what, aren't asking him, hey, man, is everything all right? You're doing all right.
My own experience, mostly dealing with Vietnam veterans, mainly, I guess, because it's tough to get the young guys to come out and join veteran service organizations. But it's tough to get veterans the simple act of asking for help is just anathema to a veteran. Just, you know, personally, and I believe Tom Dixon is a really good example because he just has a heart for his fellow vets.
He really does. And that's honestly why I use him as an example. Yeah, but you're right. So I'm sorry. You're absolutely right.
He has a great relationship with our veterans in the Legion Riders, and I believe they would probably be a lot more receptive to Tommy than to me. I always get the "I'm fine."
Always.
And a guy like Mike Francis, he's in the same position as Tom Dixon. He would have a great opportunity of getting a veteran to respond. And we do have some great people there that our veterans know they can go to. And that's the reason why we started this show, was to give veterans a place to talk, you know. And it doesn't always have to revolve around dark thoughts and suicide. There are a lot of things that are going on. And you know, Pat, you look at our Vietnam vets and the issues with Agent Orange, and you know what we're looking at down the road.
Oh, yeah.
With our Iraqi war veterans, the Afghanistan war veterans, with the burn pits. So this isn't going to improve. And when I look at this event that you're holding now, to let our listeners know, this is January 28th, 9 to 3 p.m. at the Ocean County Community College. And that's interesting. I believe Bob Luby has a lot to do with what this is all about.
He does. The Ocean County Community College was my thought because I think he may have been on your show before, Ryan Lerstema.
Kind of central.
Well, yeah, Central Jersey because it's a statewide thing. So I wanted to do something in Ocean or Burlington County there that is central, so it's equidistant for everyone to get to. But Ryan Lerstema, another former SVO student veteran president, is the assistant director of the veteran services at Ocean County Community College. So I hit up Ryan immediately, him being a close friend, saying, hey, I want to put on an event. I know you guys got a huge theater there. Like, what can you do for us? And they opened their doors wide for us, which was great. They're going to live stream it for us. They're going to record it for us. We're getting an entire stage. We're going to be able to have people inside. Lunch is going to be provided free of charge for anyone who attends. And, of course, we're going to be live streaming it as well. So it ended up being the perfect choice for the event, for the location, for all of it.
Now, you have to register. So for our listeners, you've posted this a number of times on Facebook already.
I'm hammering away at it on social media.
I'm going to make sure I email this to my email, blast it out there. This is located in Toms River at the Grunin Center of the Ocean County Community College. You could just GPS one College Drive in Toms River, and it would take you up there. And lunch will be provided for all in-person attendees by the New Jersey Veterans of Foreign Wars. And it's great to see that the VSOs are working with you, because a lot of times there always seems to be a backlash.
Every once in a while there is, and it's nice. And it's not even, I guess, so much with maybe non-associated vets or non-associated organizations. It's always tough to get, say, the American Legion, the VFW, and DAV to kind of meld together. And this is New Jersey State COVA. I mean, Bob is the chairman of the Employment, Education, and Homelessness Committee for the state of New Jersey's American Legion. Ken Hageman is the one that has been our point of contact for the VFW, as well as Commander Ludi and Jackie and John Hinker of the VFW. So we've been able to bring those service organizations together, which has been really nice to see. And it's not the first time we've been able to do it. But the more we're doing it, the more it's getting more commonplace. Again, the more times you do it, the more you normalize that conversation. You make it normal. We've really had a lot of success with it, and I'm hoping this is kind of like the top as high as we can go.
You know, I made a comment there, I guess, about when I go to people and I got a couple texts, Mike, you helped me, don't downplay. The truth of the matter is, I've been able to help people because of people like you. When Steve Warlicki was alive, Bob Frollo. But I've had a tremendous experience since you and Jackie have taken the roles of veteran outreach specialists. Just reached a new level of being able to help. And I had a guy on last week. I don't know if you had an opportunity to listen to him because he was just so thankful to you. And that was John Devlin and his dad were here.
Yeah. Yep.
And I can remember John calling me here during working hours, and his dad needed help, and I got in touch with you, and you took care of it. And that just speaks volumes. Well, let me ask you a question, Pat.
Sure.
I made a couple of notes here about personal responsibility is a cornerstone of military culture. Yet, isn't that that kind of self-sufficiency what prevents veterans from seeking even the basic help?
Yes and no. It's funny you're even asking that because I was just thinking about that the other day. Because the self-sufficiency is to keep yourself combat ready so you're then serving those who are to your left and right. So as a fire team leader, when I was an E5 fire team leader, I had myself, I had my saw gunner, my machine gunner, a rifleman, and a grenadier that I was in charge of. So it was me and 3 other individuals who I was responsible for teaching just about everything to. Like the fact, teach them how to get car insurance and how to not get screwed over on a car loan and how to get your gas turned on when you call the gas company. And I mean, you name it, I've done it for my soldiers because they didn't know, because they joined at 18 years old and had no idea what life was about. On top of all that, I'm teaching them how to get along with each other, shoot, move, communicate, and kill. And not to be corny, but what I was responsible for training them to do. So 18-year-olds, and they're 20, I don't know, however old I was, but you have, an E5 teaching his fire team how to kick indoors, how to engage the enemy, how to do all of those things. So there is a certain level of personal responsibility that needs to be put on each individual, so you're benefiting the group, benefiting the tribe. Now, there are also other things I think that the military does that, turn the bolts tighter, where if, for example, if a service member is on suicide watch, so a service member says, hey, I'm on suicide watch, and you never know, honestly. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. You never really know if the person actually is or isn't, or because how the military reacts to it. So it has been used as a way to get out of things, like having to do tough work for some soldiers, but other times it's been legitimate. And you can tell the difference between, I'd like to think back then I could tell the difference, but I can't say for certain I did. But when you came out as, I'm really thinking about hurting myself, well, and probably only a few people know, whoever's listening, there's a staff duty desk or a CQ desk, a charge of quarters desk. Usually like an NCO and like 2 privates are there, and it's a 24-hour shift, and they're watching the barracks and they're watching like the battalion area, your unit area, like where you work every day. And then they just put up a green cot like right next to that freaking desk and phone that rings all night long. And that's where that person is on suicide watch. You take them out of the comfort of their barracks room. You take them out of everything they know as comfort, at least a little bit, and you put them on a green cot. So everybody that is coming into your company or into your battalion sees that person sitting there on that cot and is like, oh, that guy's on suicide watch. So that creates a pretty negative connotation of, if I say I'm suicidal, I'm going to have to sit on that damn cot, and everybody and their mother is going to see me sitting here thinking I'm crazy. So yeah, there are some things that the military does that screws that bolt tighter. Now, I got out in 2013, and since 2013, there has been a much bigger push in mental health and all those things in the military. But I don't see that changing, only because military accountability is military accountability. How can a leader honestly tell themselves that if I send this soldier back to his barracks room, that soldier's not going to take his own life, and I'm not going to be responsible for that person? Because you look at the company commander, they're in charge of 150 or 160, soldiers under their command. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but at our level and with the resources that a company is given, I don't know if anyone has taken it upon themselves to do that. I think the other part of it is, which is what I was thinking about. You get in the shower and you have you have the best thoughts in the world, right? In the military, when you get in trouble, even if it's a little thing like, oh, you didn't get your hair cut over the weekend or whatever, you get what's called a counseling statement. So you get in trouble, and you get what is called a counseling statement. So a negative thing, and what do they call it? They call it counseling. Get in trouble, you get a counseling statement. I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, no wonder I thought counseling was terrible at one. Like, because everybody, if you go through the military and don't get a counseling statement, there's something wrong with you, honestly. Because it's for the littlest things, and it's just to keep that personal responsibility. So that's where it links into it is. So even from the get-go, if you even get a little nick, or you have to do a bunch of push-ups because you didn't get your hair cut or you didn't blouse your boots right, if you do it over and over again, you get that counseling statement. And then if you get enough counseling statements, you have Uniform Code of Military Justice that comes after you, and you have Article 15s and loss of pay possibly, and all those other things. But even right from the get-go, as soon as you get in just a little bit of trouble, you're getting a counseling statement. And then we're telling service members after they get out, go to counseling.
Yeah, you got that negative connotation.
Right, and it's just been hammered into you. You don't even, I don't think it's a conscious association, but I think it happens. And again, it's just one of those shower thoughts, like, man, maybe we shouldn't call counseling statements anymore. Like, call them what they are, like negative action reports or whatever you want to call it. Because you may be creating a brainwashing, so to speak, for trouble down the road. So I think, yes, the personal responsibility can lead to not wanting to ask for help, especially as a leader, as an NCO. I'm never going to ask my guys for help. I'm going to tell them what I need if I need help. And I'm going to do it, depending on the leader, you're going to either do it with them, you're going to overwatch them, or you're just going to tell them to do it and not even lift a finger. But there's 3 different types of leadership. That's a whole other thing. But so even as an NCO, as a sergeant or a staff sergeant, you're not leaning towards your guys or the people under you for support. You're not going to lean towards your lieutenant or your officer for support because they're in charge of you. I don't want to bother the officer. I'm an NCO, and officers are bad, right? So it's personal responsibility. I got to take care of this stuff myself. So in that way, I think it is negative. I think things should just be just a little bit more open, and I think a lot of difference would happen. I think huge differences would happen, even if you just opened it up a little bit. Like, just take off a little bit of that hard-nosedness that is the military, just a little chink of it, right? I think it would make a big difference across the board.
Well, we all know that veteran suicide is one of the greatest crises that we face today. And a lot of it, people attribute it to post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. I've seen some on episodes of Dr. Phil or The Doctors, where they've made such great strides in TBI, in being able to map the brain. And I'm not sure of exactly what the therapy is, but I'm sure the VA is ascribing to those things.
Yes, they are. They're I think one of the most successes they've had in terms of PTSD/TBI, and I'm lumping them together because the symptoms are all so very similar. The stellate ganglion blocks, so a nerve block that goes like in your neck. And I have friends who have had it done. I've been told I should have it done. For me, I'm just like, I don't know, having a big needle stuck in my neck just kind of bugs me out. Swear by it. I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So there's been great strides in that. And Wilmington's honestly one of the VAs who does it, which is really crazy because I don't think there's many other VAs that are doing it across the nation. Most service members are having to go to some community provider and either pay for it out of pocket or something along those lines, where Wilmington's doing it. A veteran can just go there, get it done. Well, they got to talk to their behavioral health person and make sure it's going to work for them and all, obviously. But Wilmington VA does do them. And then just the overall knowledge of it, back in Vietnam, they called it shell-shocked, right? What was it? Or combat. World War II was combat fatigue.
Combat fatigue.
Yeah, combat fatigue, yep. And then obviously Vietnam was shell-shocked, and Gulf War, I don't even remember what they called it in Gulf War because it was, the one-day war or whatever, it was quick. But for us now, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. And how it works, watching this fantastic movie. I haven't finished it yet, called Hell or High Seas. It's about a Navy veteran of PTSD. I found it on YouTube, and it was like $4. I bought it. I'm actually meeting with the director of it on Monday. I was introduced to him through a contact. But it's about a Navy veteran sailing from the Florida Keys all the way to the Horn, or Cape Horn? Horn of, whatever the most southern tip of South America is called. I know it's not the Horn of Africa. It's like, I think it's Cape Horn or the Horn Cape or something. Sailing there in this little boat, him and his friend, childhood friend, going down there. But they had a great explanation of what post-traumatic stress is and what happens. Where if you were under stress for a long period of time, or did you ever, when you're stressed out, you ever realize how your memory's kind of crappy?
Right.
Cortisol levels, if they are in your body for a long amount of time, so say for United States Army soldier, where Marines and Navy, I think they do 6-month deployments, Army does 1-year deployments. If you have cortisol pumping in your body for an entire year straight, there's actually negative effects on your hippocampus, which is like in the dead center of your brain, that affects your short-term to long-term memory conversion. So just having cortisol and being stressed out and your memory being junky when you're just a little stressed out, that cortisol already is affecting it. But if you have a prolonged exposure to those cortisol levels, it actually shrinks your hippocampus, and it damages another part of the brain. I can't remember what they said, but where PTSD is part physical and part mental, and that's like the best explanation I've heard of it. And I really liked it because it makes complete sense, because that's why TBI and PTSD symptoms are so similar. The short-term memory issues, the outbursts of aggression, or not outbursts of aggression, but over-exaggeration of emotions, whether good or bad, is a big key thing for TBI and for PTSD. But it's because the cortisol in your body damaged your brain. And I think now that they're finally realizing that, they're able to do things that help, like the stellate ganglion block. And I don't know exactly what it does because I'm not a doctor. I just know I have friends that it works great for. And I'm sure at some point my wife will talk me into it, and I'll get one done too, and I'll be able to sit here and say everybody and their mom should get stellate ganglion block. But there's a lot of progress being made, and I love seeing that, because ultimately that's going to hopefully lead to less of veteran suicides, or military suicides in general.
Now, Pat, where does canines come in, and all of this.
Well,
And I'm
glad
not
you
talking
asked.
about the veteran that needs the canine to actually do something physical for him. I'm talking about the companionship and the mental aspect.
Who was it I was talking to? Oh, it was Demon's handler. Okay. We had a dog with us over deployment, Demon. Such an awesome dog. Died later on afterwards. One of my platoon sergeants knew the dog back when I was at Texas. That platoon sergeant was an incredible dog trainer, and he had told me the best explanation, again, that I've heard of it, is that if you put humans and dogs personalities or their resting awareness, right, or situational awareness in terms of a traffic light. So you have, or not a traffic light, but in terms of a loaded weapon. So you have green, which the weapon is completely clear, no ammo inside, no ammunition inside the weapon whatsoever. You have yellow, that means a magazine in the weapon, but you do not have a round chambered. And then you have red, which is you have a round chambered, you're ready to shoot somebody. Okay? Readiness in dogs and in military personnel, especially those who suffer from post-traumatic stress, dogs and those who suffer from post-traumatic stress, after that event, that post-traumatic stress event that causes it, they're never really green again. They're always at yellow. Well, your dogs, anyone who's owned a dog knows that your dog is always at yellow. And if you don't believe me, go ring your doorbell right now. Or go knock on the door at your house right now and say your dogs don't bark, or get up and see what's going on. Or make a loud thud and have your dog not see what's going on. They're always on yellow. They're always ready, right? Even if you think they're in a dead sleep, you take out a squeaker toy, boom, they're up and they're ready to play. Dogs are always at yellow. So there's a common ground in that situational awareness and that readiness where they're both at yellow. And by connecting that service member and the dog together, that dog is able to be taught to help the human stay yellow and not go red. That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where it starts. That's where it helps. That's where it and that's how Alpha helps me. And I don't have him with me here today, but that's exactly how Alpha helps me the most. Is that he is an extra set of eyes that's with me. Plain and simple. Just having someone with me that, really isn't saying anything. And Alpha likes to talk to me as much as a lot, but he's with me. I know no matter what. He loves me, and he's got my back. Just like everyone I served with and I went to Iraq with, I know they have my back. Just like they know I have theirs to this day. So it's a connection that's made that can't be made, I think, after you spend that kind of time with other people that you served with. And I wish I lived closer to people that I served with, because I think it ultimately would have done me a lot better. But I also think I'm doing pretty okay for myself at this point. And again, between you and Eddie and my mom and my dad, and of course my wife and my kids, the gaps I did have been able to be filled. And I think I'm doing better than most. So I'm incredibly blessed. But yeah, the Alpha has definitely been the next, I would say the straw that broke the camel's back, but in the other way, in the opposite of it. Didn't realize how much I needed him until I had him.
Yeah, I'm going to open up the phone lines. If there's anybody who would like to call, 609-798-4475. If you have a question for Pat, or you just want to touch base for some reason, at 609-798-4475. Pat, since September 11th, over 30,000 veterans have died via suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And research has shown that veterans with legal problems are nearly twice as likely to have serious thoughts of suicide, and were 1.5 times more likely to attempt it than veterans without legal problems. It's got to be difficult in your situation as a veteran outreach specialist. Um, you when you meet with a veteran for the first time, and let's move it up to the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. Uh, do you do you find it difficult for them to open up?
It's a funny thing. It's an ongoing joke between Jackie and I, speaking Jackie Hinker, that when her and I are behind our table, for some reason, all the older veterans tend to go and talk right to her. But then all the younger veterans come and right in front of me. And you can literally see it like Moses splitting the Red Sea. Just older veteran going right to Jackie. Younger vet, post 9/11 vet, always coming right over to me. So yes, of course we're always guarded. Every single one of us are guarded. Any vet across time is guarded. But I think it's how you ask the questions. Instead of saying, what have you been doing with yourself? Or a bigger, longer, open-ended question, I usually start with, well, what branch are you in? They usually tell me. I said, oh, really? Who are you with? Where'd you go? And then they'll say X, Y, or Z. And what I'm really doing is seeing where I can insert myself into that narrative. So I can say, oh, you were at Fort Benning at Airborne School? I was down there, man. I hated those barracks there. And then the conversation starts. And it all starts with, where can I find where I can meet some common ground with this person standing in front of me? So then, and it could be 20 minutes later, sitting there at a table talking with a vet, that I finally get into, well, are you taking care of yourself? What have you been doing for yourself since you got out? And they'll be like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm busy with my wife and my kids and my family or whatever they're busy with. And I'm like, yeah, but when was the last time you saw a doctor? When was the last time you talked to somebody that was a professional and not just some dude sitting behind the table? And they'll laugh because I'm talking about myself. And they're like, I don't know. I should really do that. And then it's either, well, if you're signed up, dude, or well, I usually call guys or girls that are veteran dude, but you should get signed up. I can do it for you right here, right now. All you got to do is send me your DD-214, and I'll get you squared away. I'll call you. I'll get you an appointment. You'll be all set away. And they're like, you take care of it all? I'm like, guaranteed, dude.
Pat, I got a text here specifically to you asking if you could speak to the suicide risk factors for older veterans.
Okay. There is I think I know who asked you the question. And he's someone that I worry about sometimes. And I do love him. But once, work is an incredibly distracting thing. Young kids, your spouse, are an incredibly distracting thing for many years. If I didn't have stuff to do with my kids and my wife, I don't know what the heck I'd be doing with myself. I'd probably just be sitting in my house playing video games or something. Where coming out of, say, older conflicts, previous conflicts, well, even the Iraq and Afghanistan wars at this point are 20-year-long conflicts. So if you deployed at the beginning of, the Iraq invasion or the Afghanistan invasion, that was 20 plus years ago now, which would kind of put you in that older, maybe some in that older generation.
Plus, you have people that were in the military before the invasion.
Right, exactly.
That got drawn into it.
Right, exactly. By the time that those people separated, and we'll say not everybody does their 20, 30 years in the military, then retires and has everything kind of together. But there are many, many, many service members who did their 3 or 4 years, maybe did a deployment or two in there. They get out and they get right into a job, and especially the older generation of veterans, only because there wasn't such a requirement for higher education back, say, in the 70s after Vietnam. We'll use the example, and I'm not trying to discount or belittle anyone in any way.
Well, the GI Bill speaks for itself. I mean,
Right.
Today's GI Bill is just
Exactly.
great.
And one of the examples I use, though, is like an 88 Mike, which is a truck driver. If you were driving trucks in Vietnam, then when you got out, it was much easier for you to find a truck driving job than it is now, because you get out now and they want you to have your CDL, and they might have wanted it back then, but they want you to have a CDL, they want you to have all this other training, and you still have to go through another whole course of training before you can even get in that truck and start driving stuff across the country. Where back in Vietnam, it was, oh, you drove trucks in Vietnam? Here's the keys. And you have a job driving trucks, and you're driving trucks right away. You're working.
Like helicopter runs.
Exactly. You know, and again, I'm not the most informed person, especially for back then, but I know that happened a lot more than it didn't. I use that example because of my uncle, who was in the Air Force. He was a aircraft mechanic, and he used to load the Agent Orange, literally load it onto the planes. And when he got out, because he did the mechanic stuff and this airplane stuff, he had gotten out without going to any airplane mechanic school. He got a job fixing airplanes I think it was in Pomona, actually, before he moved all around, but just from his experience in the military. So not every job in the military translates into civilian employment. And that's the advice I give to young veterans before they get in. I said, look, yes, I know everyone wants to kick indoors and be the cool guy, but take it from a guy who thought the same way. I wish I had gone into that computer MOS, so that way when I got out, I could be working a job in computers instead of having to figure out what I want to do when I grow up at 28 years old. So I think that's the big difference. So because of those things, so those Vietnam veterans worked for X amount of years, and now, currently, or let's say within the past 10 years, they are starting to retire, not work anymore. Their kids are grown up. Their spouse maybe is with them, or maybe they got divorced, or whatever it is. It could be that service member and that spouse. We'll use that example. Well, that service member now is forced to do what with his time?
Lonely.
Start thinking about 40 years ago and all the crap he went through in Vietnam, and it starts eating at him, or her, or him, and eating at him. And if those service members aren't connected to services, there is an incredibly higher risk for those retired vets right now to commit suicide, because they're finally being forced to face the demons that they were ignoring for the past 30 or 40 years. And by that point, they're so compounded, it makes it an incredibly difficult path. But again, it's connectedness and normalizing the conversation, going back to my event, making that conversation as normal as it is talking about the weather.
You know, it's unbelievable, Pat, because when you look at two incidents that happened here very close to us in the last 6-7 years, of U.S. Navy veteran Charles Ingram, who's middle-aged, ends up committing suicide. And then you have this young man a month ago sets himself on fire. And you just wonder, when you reach that point, what is it that finally triggers that, when you reach that point of helplessness?
I don't know what it is for everyone. I know what it is for myself. Not that I've ever gotten that far for whatever reason. For me, when I start having those thoughts, it's about things that I get really, truly angry at. And I am a person who was a hothead as a kid, who I really tried to stay cool and level-headed as an adult. But if I get really mad about something, especially about something I can't do anything about, where I'm so used to being that person in charge and that person being able to control outcomes, that anger is what makes me think those thoughts. Like, oh, I'm just better off being gone. And it happens. No BS, it happens. So I can think for some, maybe that's what happens. I don't know about the gentleman in Atlantic City. I don't know for Charles. But I think if it happens to me, it happens to other people. And that's my best guess. without being a clinician in mental health. And again, that's my best guess. I do know from the incredible clinicians that I've worked with or have taught me, because I do have a bachelor's in psychology, that suicides tend to happen when everything starts going right, and all of a sudden there's something really bad that happens that kind of dumps you back down. Like it's going from a really high to a really low. And that's where a majority of suicides happen at. So, for instance, I think it's a good example for those Vietnam vets we're talking about. Their life, they got out of Vietnam, and their life went up, was going up, because they were getting income, and they were getting promoted at work, and they were having kids, and they were watching their kids graduate, and the hill keeps going up. And then they retire, and the kids move out, and it drops off. Now it's, what do I do with myself? It's what makes Legion Riders. It's what makes the American Legion. It's what makes VFWs. It's what makes connectedness so important. So you don't have to suffer alone. That there's other people suffering that are there to help you, that are there to have your backs.
You know, when I think back when I first started the radio program, we had a guest on our show, someone you know pretty well. He was Undersecretary of Defense under the Obama administration. He was put in charge of the Warrior Transition Unit at Knoll Coat. And when he went into, I think it was Walter Reed, they were just using narcotics to try to get over these problems. And when he reported what was happening, they fired it. But I think that today, I don't think they use that.
The narcotics and stuff, they're definitely looked at as a last resort, especially in the military. Because I don't know, I don't want to speak for the VA on the matter, because I'm not a doctor. But I know I've never been offered them myself as a VA patient. I've never really been offered narcotics from my doctor. I've been offered to go to pain management and have a pain management specialist do those things and decide on what was best for me. For the military, I know they have turned away from that significantly. I don't think they have it right just yet. The WTUs was a great start. I have a fellow NCO that I was with down at Fort Hood, who was moved to an NCO of that transition unit, one of the transition units down at Fort Hood. And he had said it was the best command he was with. It was the best job he had. And he just loved it because he was really, helping Joe. Joey's play on words of G.I. Joe / baby kangaroos. So your privates and your younger, anyone who you're in charge of is your Joey. Like your little, your kid G.I. Joe. He was really able to help and assist people, and he felt like he was making a difference. Military has a long way to go, though. There are programs, the TAPS program, Transition Assistance Program, and I don't know if the whole thing works for, is a great intent, maybe poor execution, to no fault of the people who are the ones executing the TAPS program. It's whoever's above that, because most of it's just overviews and nothing real tangible. Me as a VA employee now, knowing now what I didn't know back then, was you go to the TAPS briefing and you have a day where you do all of your VA benefits briefings, and all you're given is like the main 1-800 number to VA and told, these are the things you may qualify for. Well, who's going to actually call? Where that VA employee, I know now, has an entire global address list, could email an enrollment form to any medical center in the country for those people in that classroom. If I said, I'm going back to New Jersey, to South Jersey, they would be able to say, oh, who covers South Jersey? Either Philly or Wilmington or East Orange. At least that's where I'm living, where I'm at. One of them got my enrollment form. so that when I get out and I walk into the VA here, I'm already on the list, so to speak. I wish that's what they would do, but they don't. At least not yet.
I thought that they were doing something similar to that.
So, I don't know.
When you separate from service now, you're not.
You're not signed up for anything.
Are they? They are signing everyone up for VA, though, right?
No.
No,
Unless they have a team like Jackie and I, or a team, or they've signed on to a program which I'm very involved with, the ETS sponsorship program, which is the essentially the reverse basic training that should be scripture at this point for the DoD and for VA. It's not yet. It's still just as a nonprofit, but it's a nonprofit / partnership with VA. It's a fabulous program. It's taking a single service member and connecting them with a civilian, whether it's a civilian veteran or a civilian, in the area that service member is going to be moving to, and that person is like basically their sponsor, like for AA or PCS sponsors, which is
peer mentor.
Yeah, peer mentor. Yeah, that is saying like, hey, these are the places looking for jobs. These are nice places to live. This is where the good schools are. Hey, make sure you get signed up with the VA. If you want, I can help you with it. Having that lifeline to wherever you're going to get that set up for you is huge. It's a huge difference, and immediately I was drawn to it. It was thoughts that I've been trying to work out myself, because years ago I said, man, there should be some sort of reverse basic training. Like, why couldn't everyone getting out of the military at 60 days out go to another battalion that focuses on just being a civilian? Tells you how to apply for a mortgage, tells you how to do your own taxes, tells you how to make
we don't want them to do their own taxes.
Well, just telling them what their
basic,
who to even talk to. Like, do you know what I mean?
Kidding.
Like, all those things that the military took care of for us. Like, there was just an H&R Block, or there was a battalion would have tax people come in, and we'd just show up with our W-2s and our wives, and they'd do our taxes. We walk away. Hey, we got money. And that was it. We didn't have any idea what was going on in that paperwork. We just signed off on it. We trusted them. All the doctor's appointments and stuff, everything was routine. Like, you got a call because it was a year before you saw the doctor last. Dental was the same way. Once you get out, none of that's done for you. It was nice having it done for you, but no one's there to say, hey, you need to make sure you do all these things.
Yeah,
they're not going to be done for you.
I don't know why I had the impression that as soon as you separated from service today, you were automatically signed up to the VA. Because I can remember back when Mike Francis was the liaison to Congressman up yonder, they had those, they were always having these sign-ups at different VFWs or Legions.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that stopped then, because that gives me the impression that they were.
That really stopped. I mean, because that's what Jackie and I do. I mean, that's our main responsibility for VA down here in South Jersey, is getting veterans signed up for VA. And we have inserted ourselves, at least with the National Guard here. And with those TAP briefings that happened, Jackie and I have finally been able to get ourselves involved with the TAP briefings now up at Fort Dix and at McGuire with ETS sponsorship programs. So we're finding them sponsors, but then we're also able to get them connected to VA services at the same time as they're doing their briefings. Because the TAP, it's a bunch of political stuff, and they're just not allowed to go into specifics like that because of contracts and things like this. And
well, let me ask you a simple question.
Sure.
I'm a veteran, and I come to you, and I want to sign up for the VA.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to do that simple process?
DD 214, and then depending on when you got out, you don't even need that. I just need your info, social security number.
Just and that gets you in the system.
Yeah.
Amazing. Something so simple that everybody goes through a separation from the military.
Yep. Now, if you're a service member that is med boarding, say getting medically discharged, like I did, all of that is taken care of for you. But if you're just a service member just getting out normally, none of that's taken care of for you. There is this VA Solid Start program, which is the VBA calls you like 3 times within your first year after separation, but it's another think great intent, poor execution, because that information is not shared with the healthcare side of the fence. It's only a VBA thing. It's only a benefit side of the fence. So it's like, you could be service connected for this X, Y, and Z, and you could sign up for VA healthcare. You could go to the vet center. Here are some 1-800 numbers to call, instead of, oh, you're in South Jersey, here's Pat Carney to call, or here's, you can focus it. There are people who exist, or there are, every medical center has an eligibility department that you could give this calls to this national call center a list of. I mean, it's not incredibly difficult to keep track and make sure those numbers are up to date, and it's so much so that when Secretary Wilkie was still Secretary of the VA and he came to Wilmington 2.5 years ago, it was 2.5 years ago, with Senator Carper, like he always has a Veterans Summit at Wilmington. I think it's Carper. Wilkie's there, and he asked if anyone had any questions, and me being me, I raised my hand immediately. Hey, sir, what's being done about transition assistance and the TAPS program? He's like, well, what's wrong with the TAPS program? I'm like, it's garbage, sir. Like, they don't really do anything for you. And I might have been being a little crappy to him, but it's not like I was lying. Because then two other vets who happened to be in the room, and I'm there as a VA employee, mind you, and this guy's like my boss's boss's boss. Two other vets are like, he's right. Like, I was in the Navy, or I was a Marine, and I was Army. Like, TAPS was awful. Like, all they do is throw information at you, and then you get out, and they kick you out the door. And he's like, wow, I'm really surprised to hear that. And this next part, I went white. Because myself and General Mattis built that program. So Secretary Wilkie and General James Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, apparently built the TAPS program, which I'm sure they had every good intention with it, but just never, everything kind of gets skewed somewhat when it comes out of somewhere. And I'm getting away from the microphone, I apologize. It was soon after that the Solid Start program had came out, and it was something Secretary Wilkie was very proud of, and I do like it. It is a step in the right direction. At least the VA is calling them now, right? It wasn't just you come to us. Now we're the VA at the central office level is starting to come to the veteran.
Now these young guys coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan, they should all sign into the burn pit registry, right?
Absolutely.
And I always hear these horror stories from Vietnam vets about wanting to get coverage for Agent Orange, and they need to have a witness or two witnesses or something. Is this going to be the same kind of thing with the burn pit registry, or is there something they can do, Pat, right now to solidify their records?
Fortunately, it's a technological age. So there is already, when you go on the burn pit registry, where years ago it wasn't, but now it is, the FOB, I was at FOB Warhorse. Consequently, I was at FOB Warhorse, both of my deployments with two completely different units, which isn't common whatsoever in the Army, but it happened to me. FOB Warhorse had a burn pit there, and on my first deployment, we had a joint company outpost that we shared with Iraqi police. We had a burn pit 30 feet from where we slept. Like, it was like our plywood huts, a little, like, I don't know what it was, not really basketball, it was just a concrete slab, and then a swimming size pool size burn pit. And I have videos of us being retarded around playing with fire, because there's nothing else to do in the middle of the city. Like, you're not on mission, like, gotta blow off steam somehow. So we slept right next to a burn pit. And then whenever we'd be when we finally 10 months later moved back to the FOB, the Forward Operating Base Warhorse, when we had usually like Sunday mornings we do some platoon PT or whatever, we were doing PT and running right by the giant burn pit on the FOB, running by it, just sucking in all that air. Thankfully now FOB Warhorse is on that registry, because I've since gone back and looked and to see, and because of, I think, the technological age, there is a much better record of places that have had burn pits. So when you go on that registry, I'd say there's a 9.5 out of 10 chance that the place you were next to that burn pit is going to be on that registry.
Is there like there is with Agent Orange? Is there a comparative list of
Presumptive
medical
illness list?
issues that are attributed to it? Have they already started that?
The presumptive illness list. I know they've started it, but there's also the issue of gestation, where it's not for many Agent Orange veterans. It wasn't immediately they started having medical issues. It was 10, 15 years later, 20 years later. I think it's prevalent for us now because the war we fought was 20 years long.
And guys were deploying 3-4 times.
Exactly. So I think about Eddie's friend. He became my friend. Victor is a perfect example. So you spend all that time near that stuff. It's just the gestation is quicker maybe for some than others. So there is, again, that gestation period that it takes a while maybe for some of these illnesses to come up that you may not have seen before. Same thing with like that malaria. There's a malaria medication that the side effects of it years later were the same symptoms as someone with a severe or PTSD and brain injury. Was all caused by a malaria drug they took years before in the military.
Wow.
Crazy. And it's stuff like that again that being who Jackie and I are, having that information and saying like, when were you in? Did you ever take malaria medication? Well, yeah. You should probably talk to your service officer about that, or talk to your VA doctor about that, because you may have something going on, and not every VA has a Jackie and I think that would be much more helpful to many vets if they did, because Vince in his almighty wisdom, when we first came on, kind of gave us carte blanche to do what was right for the veterans as opposed to what would be right for the VA or what would, be right by the book, and to actually do the right thing. And it was incredibly successful and continues to be incredibly successful.
And then, of course, you have, Pat, what was the biggest burn pit ever was Ground Zero.
Right.
And a lot of our military was deployed there. And I'm sure you run into the same COPD and issues.
Absolutely.
We got a lot of first responders that have already succumbed to
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Very sad.
Yep.
I know you were stretched for time, and I don't want to hold you up anymore. I really appreciate the fact that you took the time away from your family to be here. And, you're always welcome here. You and Jackie, come in anytime. If you have something you want to share, just give me a little notice, and we'll make that the show.
It's my honor to be here. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I love coming in here, and I wish I had more time today. But we have a dumpster at the house. We only have it for a certain amount of time, and the snow killed us last week. So.
If you want to give a last plug for that.
I do, yes. Yes, and this is Veteran Suicide, Normalize the Conversation. It's turning the conversation about mental health and needing help with anything in life into a conversation that's as easy as talking about the weather. The event is January 28th at the Jay and Linda Grunin Center, 1 College Drive in Toms River, New Jersey. That's the Ocean County Community College campus, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you would like to register for the event, if you're listening, you can look for me on Facebook at search for Patrick Carney, or you can email me at patrick.carney@va.gov. Let me know you want to register for the event. Especially if you're a business or an organization like Mike. I hope someone from the Legion Riders is coming up that day so we can show them.
I'll make sure that they're very much aware of this.
That way, if you guys start doing it, you guys set the example for a lot of things here in South Jersey. So if you guys are doing it, hopefully maybe the American Legion over at Summers Point will start doing it, and then VFW and
the Legion Riders up there in Ocean County, they're the largest in the state.
Yeah. Yep. So, yep. Okay. I'm going to have to make sure I invite them too, or if you know any of them, make sure they're invited as well, because it'd be great to have you guys there.
Okay. I'll make sure it gets to.
You guys are a perfect example of the kind of groups and clubs we're looking for that could really benefit from this.
Right. And we do 2 events a year to raise funds for our local veterans. But if there's ever anything that we could get involved in, with you guys, just drop me a line.
Absolutely.
The veterans in the Legion Riders are the greatest bunch of guys.
They are, and when Tom, you guys dropped everything. When my friend John passed away, Monroe, down in Cape May, last month or a couple months ago now, and his funeral was on Veterans Day of all times, and I know you guys are super busy that day. But you guys dropped everything, and you guys were there for him and his family, and to make sure he had the proper escort and the proper send off. So that's always nice to see, and always know I can depend on you guys.
Thanks a lot, Pat. Glad to have you here, and we're going to take a little brief break and play this tribute to the 8th of November.
On November 8, 1965, the 173rd Airborne Brigade on Operation Hump, War Zone D in Vietnam, were ambushed by over 1,200 VC. 48 American soldiers lost their lives. Severely wounded and risking his own life, Lawrence Joel, a medic, was the first living black man since the Spanish-American War to receive the United States Medal of Honor for saving so many lives in the midst of battle that day. Our friend Niles Harris, retired 25 years United States Army, the guy who gave Big Kenny his top hat, was one of the wounded who lived. This song is his story. Caught in the action of kill or be killed, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his brother.
As he left South Dakota to fight for the red, white, and blue. He was 19 and green with a new M16, just doing what he had to do. He was dropped in the jungle where the choppers would rumble with the smell of napalm in the air. Then the sergeant said, "Look up ahead." Like a dark evil cloud, 1,200 came down on him and 29 more. They fought for their lives, but most of them died in the 173rd Airborne. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November. Now he's 58 and his ponytail's gray, but the battle's still blazing in his head. He limps when he walks, but he's strong when he talks about the shrapnel that left in his leg. He puts on a gray suit over his airborne tattoo, and he ties it on one time a year, and remembers the fallen as he orders a tall one and swallows it down with his tears. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November. the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. On the 8th of November, the angels were crying as they carried his brothers away. With the fire raining down and the hell all around, there were few men left standing that day. Saw the eagle fly through a clear blue sky. 1965, the 8th of November. The 8th of November. 8th of November. Said goodbye to his mama as he left South Dakota to fight for the red, white, and blue. He was 19 and green with a new M16, just doing what he had to do.
And welcome back to Veterans Matter. Had a great hour and 15 minutes with our guest, United States Army and Iraq War veteran Pat Carney, who's also the Veteran Community Outreach Specialist covering South Jersey. And if there is anything that you wanted some information on from Pat, you could always email Pat at patrick.carney@va.gov. And if you hear any phone numbers or emails, information that you missed, you can always contact me at irskill@aol.com, and I'll be able to get you the information that you need. One of the things, if my brothers from the American Legion Riders, Post 352, are on with me, I'd like to repeat this event that's happening. It's called Veterans Suicide, Normalize the Conversation, and it's presented by the New Jersey Keep Our Veterans Alive Initiative, and it's January 28th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So it's hosted by the Ocean County Community College, which is located One College Drive in Toms River, New Jersey, at the Grunin Center. There will be lunch provided for all in-person attendees. To register for live stream or in-person attendance, please contact Patrick Carney. His phone number here on the flyer is 302-358-9736. And you could also call Bob Luby at 908-894-0746. And I'll make sure that I get this flyer to our Legion Riders. Like Pat said, it'd be a good event for our Legion Rider veterans to attend. And in honor of our Vietnam vets,
Good morning, Vietnam!
it just never gets old. And each week we like to give a little historical background on that war that took place from the early 60s to 1975. I want to give you a very brief chronology of the Vietnam War, because a lot of people don't really know how this all started. Back in 1954, the Viet Minh, M-I-N-H, they were the communist nationalists that were led by Ho Chi Minh, defeated the French. Up to 1954, the French ruled over Vietnam. In 1955, Viet Minh began terrorist attacks in President Diem's South Vietnam. The North and South was created by the Geneva Settlement. In 1961, President Kennedy begins building up American presence in South Vietnam with advisors and Special Forces troops. And a good friend of ours, who's been on our show many times, he's commander of the VFW post over in Brigantine, Mario Perucci, was part of that initial buildup. In 1965, President Johnson sends in the Marines, bringing at the beginning of the American troop buildup that eventually reaches 500,000 troops. In 1969, President Nixon begins the drawdown of American troops, and it's pretty sad because President Nixon had given the Air Force the okay to bomb Hanoi, and things were going pretty well. And from what we've learned many years later, was that if that bombing of Hanoi had continued for about 3 or 4 more months, the North Vietnamese were ready to give up. 1973, all American combat troops are out of Vietnam after a ceasefire. Now, this is where this gets a little hazy, because in my opinion, and up to that point, the Americans just kicked butt in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos. And when we took our troops out of Vietnam for this ceasefire, we had eliminated all of the Viet Cong from South Vietnam, and the North Vietnamese armies were at bay. They were either above the DMZ or in Cambodia or Laos. The Americans at the point of withdrawal had promised the South Vietnamese that we would be there to provide air support in the event that the North Vietnamese invaded them. It didn't take long, though, for the North Vietnamese to invade South Vietnam. Little skirmishes at first, and then huge buildups. And the political tide had changed by then, and President Nixon had lost his presidency to Watergate. The cabinet positions were different, and the House and Senate were basically Democrat, and they refused to allow the Air Force to provide any air support. And of course, the North Vietnamese communists invaded and conquered South Vietnam. And it's sad when you think about today, that war and some of the consequences of it that are still prevalent today. One of the biggest things of that war was the continued propaganda that was unleashed on the American public, much of it untrue, and some of those people who were involved in spreading it were well known. People like Jane Fonda, who went so far as to visit North Vietnam, and actually, to me, and to just about every Vietnam veteran I've ever spoken to, considers her a traitor to the American people. And then you had somebody by the name of John Kerry. John Kerry ran for the presidency in I believe, 2004. And John Kerry, during the Vietnam War, he threw away his medals that he had obtained, and his propaganda became known as the winter meetings. And he actually spoke before a Senate subcommittee and told the senators that there was wide known atrocities perpetrated on South Vietnamese men, women, and children, babies even. Curry had given this subcommittee a list of fellow soldiers who would back him up on this stuff. And they ended up closing their meetings and did an investigation. When they reconvened the winter meetings, they found out that not one of the soldiers on the list given by Curry had ever even deployed to Vietnam, and in some cases they couldn't even find a soldier by some of the names. But what this did, all of those meetings that Curry had were made public. So the United States of America, the people, believed him that these atrocities occurred. I can remember my brother coming home from Vietnam, and I can remember my dad during this time, who was a decorated war veteran, World War II, being so upset with what he thought had been portrayed. And today, our Vietnam veterans look back at that time as a very dark period in the history of our country. Some could not even walk the streets in uniform without being called baby killers or spit on. It was quite horrible. And one story that I tell here on our show often is meeting with a tax client in my office, and he saw some of the military memorabilia, the POW MI flag, and asked me why I had it. And I just, I said, well, I just advocate for our veterans. And they look at him, and there's a tear falling from his eye. And next to him was his wife. And I looked at her. I was like kind of shocked. I didn't know what to say. And she said to me, Mike, he was in the Navy, and told the story that when he docked in Virginia, I believe in Fairfax, I think they were told they couldn't leave the base in their uniforms. And every military man that I've ever known was proud to wear the uniform of his service, whether it was Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, or Coast Guard. But they were told they couldn't, and it was evident when they got off base into the local bars and restaurants that the public was against them. Well, that was 1960s to 1975, and here we are 50 years later, and our Vietnam vets have made it very well known that they will not allow another generation of soldiers to go through what they went through. And they've been on the forefront of so much that has gone positive for our military today. When you think, going back through from 1991, when the Agent Orange Act was first formed, all the way through today, where we now have burn pit registries for our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. And you think about all that negative stuff out there, and yet we still have the greatest fighting force in the world, and it's all volunteer. It's just commendable, and what the American people are when when it comes right down to it. A couple of things I wanted to bring up. We had our American Legion Riders meeting this past Monday. It was a week late because of the bad weather, but we came up with the date for our spring barbecue. So I want to start. I will probably be mentioning this just about every week up until the event. The spring barbecue will be on Sunday, May 15th. That's a week after Mother's Day. And this event, we do not have a corresponding ride. Everything is at the post, American Legion Post 352, 1st and Pennsylvania Avenues in Summers Point. And I tell you, it is one of the best events you could go to. The food by the Back Bay Barbecue, Len Daggett's place, it's just phenomenal. And, of course, our live music will be presented by the Motts Creek Pickers. Great band with a great following. So mark that date down. That's Sunday, May 15th, 2022. And the times will be announced as we get closer. Could be noon to 4, noon to 5, or 1 to 4, 1 to 5. Well, I'll let you know exactly as we move on. But you won't want to miss it. For a nominal fee, it's been $20 per person in the past, payable at the door. It's just a great opportunity. Not only good food, good music, but a chance to rub elbows with the men and women who have sacrificed so much for every liberty and freedom that we enjoy. And I, as a Legion Rider, I'm really looking forward to that event. If you're a veteran or the son of a vet, you can join the American Legion Riders if you ride a motorcycle. That's one of the conditions of membership, is to have a motorcycle. So if you fall into that category as a vet or son of a vet and you ride a motorcycle and would like to participate in the Legion Riders, you can come out to any meeting. They're the first Monday of each month, and we'd love to have you. Your first night out, we'd like you to just sit back, watch the way the meeting's presented and the things that we're involved in. And if you like it, you go forward and see our membership chairman, Bobby Taylor, and get you started. Some of the things we do as Legion Riders, it's just, to me, I spent quite a few years with Rolling Thunder, and it was a great outfit, and Rolling Thunder was committed to the POW MIA issue, which I do believe is probably one of the most important things for a veteran service group to participate in and to support. But the Legion Riders do that and more. They're involved in honor missions weekly, where they will escort the remains to a cemetery. In most cases, it's a veteran cemetery here in Atlantic County. It's in Estelle Manor. But we've gone as far as William Doyle National Cemetery, and also some couple cemeteries out of state in Pennsylvania. That's just one of the things we do. We also support our local veterans. Every dollar that's raised in our two events, every single dollar goes to support our local veterans and veterans issues. Exactly 14 days ago, on January 1st, maybe 15 days ago, the American Legion Riders presented the Fisher House with $2,500 check to support their efforts. And the Fisher House, if you don't know, there's Fisher Houses all over the country, and in a few places, Germany. And if you have an injured active duty military, they will house the family, get them there. Everybody knows that the quickest way to heal is with family present. So Fisher House has done that, and the Legion Riders have stepped up on an annual basis and has supported them. There are so many other things that the Legion Riders support, including our veterans at the Meadowview complex in Pleasantville, also the Vet Haven South, the Vineland Memorial Home, and of course, as Pat was mentioning when he was here, there were 2 or 3 events that his mom had started at Mainland Regional High School, one being to support our troops program, where you can give all kinds of toiletries that go to our local active duty military who are deployed. The Legion Riders do that, plus they give checks a couple times a year to help pay for the postage of those containers. It's gotten quite expensive, but the Legion Riders step up. They also support Mainland's Wrestling for Warriors. The last year or so with the COVID, things have been restricted. Hopefully we'll hear something soon about the event. Usually takes place in late January, early February. The Legion Riders also go on leisure rides. Every once in a while, they'll go up to Lancaster to the Ox Roast, and they'll do one-day travels. I know they got a couple things planned. Skyline Drive in the Shenandoah Valley. So it's a great time and a great opportunity to have a camaraderie with your fellow vets and your fellow veterans advocates. You got to remember that these veterans that are part of the Legion Riders, especially our group, many of them are Vietnam vets or Vietnam era veterans. And here they are, some 55 years after their own service, are out there advocating for their fellow vets. It's just a phenomenal group of guys. And there's one thing I wanted to talk about that we don't really get a chance too often to do that here on Veterans Matter, but we talk about the issues of veterans suicide, the PTSD, TBI, and I've been reminded on a number of occasions, and being a man who has a deep belief in our Lord and Christianity, I believe that there's another source of healing for our men and women who are suffering from these ailments. And I think that we so often leave out the spiritual aspects of our life. And I would invite anybody who has an issue with any of these ailments, whether it's PTSD, TBI, just depression of some sort, go to your local church. I know the church that I belong to, Fusion in Egg Harbor Township, has a great ministry, as does New Life Church in Egg Harbor Township, dealing with our military. And I think that sometimes we we miss something that's right there in front of us that can be very helpful. And to all my veteran friends that are going through a tough time, maybe think about that. Give me a call or an email, and I'd like to help you get involved with that. A friend of ours a few years ago, our pastor up at Gloucester County Community Church, Pastor Bruce Sophia, wrote a book called Hope Beyond Suicide. And just a wonderful little booklet. Everyone knows when someone takes their life, those left behind struggle desperately to put together the pieces. The aftermath is devastating. A few years ago, I was very good friends with a veteran who he had deployed 3 or 4 times as a Marine in Iraq, came home, separated from service, and just could not get along in civilian life. So he joined the Army. And as soon as he was ready, they shipped him to Afghanistan. And he served his country there for deployment. And I think that got the best of him. His name was Chris Gerace. And Chris came home. He asked the Army to give him a break. And the Army decided to make him a staff sergeant in charge of training our troops. And Chris ended up with some severe problems. Ended up going AWOL, which hurt his standing with the military. He ended up in his parents' home in Atlantic City and shuttered himself in with a weapon. Luckily, the Atlantic City Police Department, led by, I believe, I'm trying to remember the sergeant's name, but he did a great job of talking Chris out, and Chris ended up in the Atlantic County Jail, and Eddie Fanador and I went and visited him a number of times, and ended up, Chris got some help, but not all the help he needed. And then because of his military standing, the judge released him. And I'm not going to sit here and put blame on the VA, or things were different back in them days, but Chris ended up self-medicating and committed suicide. And it was devastating for the family. This was a man who had 3 or 4 deployments, served his country unbelievably, and succumbed to his demons. And if you're out there and you need help, please don't turn away. You call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. If you want someone to talk to, you could always drop me a line. My phone number is 609-226-2668. My email is irskill@aol.com. Pat Carney can be reached at patrick.carney@va.gov. And his phone number is 302-358-9736. So please don't just turn your back. If you're suffering at all, reach out, get some help. There's a lot of help available, and we want to see you healed of this. Well, we're getting close to the end of this show. We got a couple minutes left. I just want to thank Pat Carney and his family for having him be here on this Saturday afternoon. My guests are just great. What can you say about men and women who give up a Saturday afternoon to help their fellow veterans? I thank guys like Mike Francis, the former liaison between our veterans, and Congressman LeBiondo, Chris Chin, who is now the veterans liaison between our veterans, and Congressman Van Drew. This show doesn't work without a lot of people helping. I'm very thankful for my producer, Al Zentmeyer, and the time that he gives up to do this. I'm very thankful for Kyle Johnson, who does the live stream for Coastal Christian and has spent numerous hours, just unbelievable, getting all of our live stream, our what we call our, it's just different. Live stream's just so much different than talk radio. It's so much more involved. And it's our hope that we continue to bring you this show each week. I'm waiting now from a call back on our guests for next week. If it's who I believe it'll be, we're going to have a great show. And if you're out there and you would like to participate, you'd like to come on to Veterans Matter and just talk about your time in the service, or if you're a veterans advocate and want to talk about the things you're doing, feel free to drop me a line and let me know. I'd love to have you sit across here and tell everybody your story. If you're a veteran, whether you were a combat veteran or you weren't, your story is just as important, and we would love to have you participate. And we're going to end this show the way we always do, and in honor of our good friend Bill Butler. I'm going to say, if you love your freedom, thank a vet.